The first war veteran I interviewed was an older gentleman in 1997. I was in a discussion group, and he was a member of that group, and he wore an eye patch, and I learned somehow that he had lost his eye fighting the Germans during the Second World War. I was teaching a history class at the local university, and I asked if he'd be willing to come to my class, not to give a lecture, not to give a speech, but just to show up and to have a discussion about his experiences in the Second World War. And I have a very clear memory of some of the things he said. And that was the beginning. And since then, since the late 1990s, I have interviewed many, many hundreds of veterans who served in the world of war. At the outset, it was overwhelmingly World War II veterans. And one of my great regrets is that I did not record the vast majority of those discussions. And so they were great discussions, often within the context of a classroom, but once that class meeting was over, the discussion was as well, because I didn't record them. Like a lot of Americans, the Korean War conflict was something that sort of passed me by. It wasn't until around 2017 that I began to focus on the Korean War, although by that time, unfortunately, there weren't a whole lot of Korean War veterans around. But I was able to meet with some and to hear about the experiences of some, including one who was a member of a team, sort of a forerunner to the Navy's SEAL teams. In recent years, I've spoken overwhelmingly with Vietnam veterans. There have been some discussions with veterans of the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan and other smaller engagements around the world, but overwhelmingly Vietnam veterans. I'm not very interested in strategy. I'm not very interested in weapons. Veterans will often say things to me that by now, I should follow pretty easily, but I don't. The 5th Battalion of the 20th Regiment, or, stuff like that. That stuff just does not stick in my mind. What I'm very interested in is the personal experiences of individuals who served in the world of war. More than anything else, I'm interested in the human story. I'm interested in the human spirit. I'm interested in how people get through difficult circumstances and what they do with those experiences, what they do with those memories down the road. There are certain memories that stick in the mind. There was a World War II veteran serving during the Battle of the Bulge, and he wanted to eat, but he did not want to sit in the snow, and so he sat on a dead German. And many years later, he wondered, what had happened to him as a young man that seemed like a good idea. Another veteran I spoke to was a waist gunner on a B-17, and he saw the German fighter coming toward his plane, the German fighter that would shoot his B-17 down. And he was there with his gun, just watching this German fighter come in. And he said that the gun jammed, and so he wasn't able to do anything about it. But then in a later discussion, he told me that actually he wasn't certain that the gun jammed. He wonders if he froze in panic, and that's why he didn't shoot. And this is something that he did not resolve before he left this world. I spoke with a Vietnam veteran who went into a tunnel where he met a Viet Cong, and they got into a face-to-face knife fight, which the American veteran won. And decades after the war, he still was not sure whether that person he fought with and killed in that tunnel, whether it was a man or a woman. And he said that in the end, it really didn't matter because that person was trying to kill him, but it's just something that nagged at him. Another Vietnam veteran I remember talking with at the memorial, at the wall in Washington, D.C. And he was scanning the wall, and I struck up a conversation with him. And he said that he had called all of his buddies by nicknames, that he did not remember any names. And there was one particular soldier who had actually taken his place on a mission, and that soldier had been killed. And he wanted to look up that soldier's name on the wall to pay respects. The soldier had taken his place on that mission and had been killed, but he didn't know his real name. He remembered his nickname, but of course that didn't help him at the wall. And so there he was, scanning the wall, looking for something that seemed familiar. These are very important and deep stories. And when we discuss them with vets, when we hear veterans share their thoughts about these stories, then we learn a little something about the war. We learn a little something about the war's impact on individuals. I think we also learn something about people, about humanity. I want to bring the gifts of interest and undivided attention. And in exchange, the listener and the others who will listen in as that discussion is recorded and made available, what the listener gets in exchange for interest and undivided attention is a story that either has never been told at all or has never been told just like this. And I think that's a really, really great exchange.